to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
There's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. But the surface appears to be very, very fine-grained as you get close to it. I'm at the foot of the ladder. I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Right, hi everyone. I hope everyone's well. I hope you're having a great day. Can anyone see me? Let's change the layout. Let's do that. Yeah, I hope everyone's well. I hope you're having a great day. And yes, this one, I've got something really special to show you today. I hope you're going to enjoy it. It's we're going back into the mists of time, and we're going to look at well, this is the first one of might be more than 2 or 3 that I do about this character. It's a gentleman by the name of Mr. John Lear. For those of you who don't know, and I can't believe there's many of you who don't know about this guy is an absolute legendary figure in the world of UFOs and conspiracy theories, as the power brokers like to call it. I find that that phrase really insulting. I can't bear it. I don't like using it, but a lot of people will understand more of what I'm trying to say if I use that expression, but I hate it. I prefer to use the word alternative theories, because I just think, well, what are you actually conspiring about? You're not conspiring about anything. You're just voicing your opinion, and there's nothing conspiratory about that. So yeah, anyway, so we're going back in the midst of time today, and we're going to be looking at an interview that was held between George Knapp and another legendary figure in the world of UFOs, and this gentleman by the name of John Lear. Now, he has, down the years, voiced some really outrageous and outlandish theories about all sorts of different things, UFOs, all sorts of stuff. But we're going to have a look at it, and we'll see what happens. So let me just pull up this. Where is it? Where am I? Where is it? Where is my... Right, here we go. So here we go. Here it is. So yeah, we're going to be looking. That's not what I'm looking for. Yeah, here we are. This is what I'm looking for. So yeah, we're going to be looking at this interview that was held between George Knapp and John Lear, on a TV show called On the Record in 1987. And just to give you a little bit of background about this interview, it was aired on a channel called, channel called KLAS TV, and the show's called On the Record, and it features George Knapp, who is another legendary figure in the field of ufology, and he's an investigative reporter and TV reporter. And like I say, he's interviewing the gentleman by the name of John Lear. And it was, like I say, it was recorded about 38 years ago now. And it is unbelievable. It really is. I think you're going to enjoy it. Now, George Knapp, during his career in journalism, he's had a number of roles, including an investigative journalist, a news anchor, a radio host, and a TV presenter. Now, John Lear was born on the 3rd of December 1942. His father was Learjet founder and industrialist Bill Lear. John Lear studied at a boarding school in Switzerland and attended Wichita State University in Kansas. In 1956, aged just 14, he flew his first flight. Between 1967 and 1983, he flew numerous flights for the CIA, and he went on to set multiple aviation records, including flying around the world in a Learjet, which lasted approximately 50 hours, covering 22,000 miles, and also he held at least 17 world speed records at one point or another. So John Lear has gained a reputation for making wild, as I said earlier, he's gained a reputation for making wild, and not to put too fine a point on it, crazy and outrageous comments, and airing alternative theories on a variety of topics, including UFOs, 9/11, and the moon landings, to name just but a few. And to many, he was viewed as the godfather of conspiracy theories, or alternative theories, as I prefer to call them. To put it mildly, he was a massive figure in the world of UFOs and conspiracy theories. He sadly passed on at the age of 79 on the 29th of March 2022. I personally believe he was a highly interesting character, and amongst all the madness and craziness that surrounded him and the wild theories that he had, some of which, though, to be honest, were beyond the fringe, he did say some things that interestingly have come true. Amongst all that madness, there seemed to be, I am hoping, where am I gone? I've lost my track here. Amongst all that madness that seemed to surround him, which, if I'm being honest, I think he enjoyed, I do believe he enjoyed I do believe that he enjoyed to play with people and wind people up and see how much madness that he could get them to believe. I'm hoping to do a show about another show, at least one more, maybe two, I'm not sure yet, about him in the future, because, as I said, I believe he's a highly fascinating and complex character, and you will not get bored listening to him, that's for sure. I think it is important at this point to mention that at the time of this TV show was broadcast, that we're going to look at in a minute, Ronald Reagan was president of the United States of America, and he is mentioned a few times during the course of this interview. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at this interview between George Knapp and John Lear, and at various points through the show, I am going to stop it and make some comments. So let's see if I can find it. Where is it? Here it is. Let's play it, and let's just play it and see what happens. See how this works. I'm not sure if this is going to work very well, but bear with me, all right, because it's definitely worth watching. So anyway, here we go.
Hello and welcome to On the Record. Flying saucers, extraterrestrials, monsters from outer space. The government has been telling us for years that they're not real. They're weather balloons or swamp gas or reflections from the sun or the ravings of lunatics. But serious UFO researchers say a breakthrough may be very close. Some of the government scientists who worked on the top secret project Blue Book are ready to talk. What's more, a series of revealing government documents have trickled out of the federal files, documents that paint a much different picture of the UFO phenomenon. One of the most dedicated UFO researchers lives right here in Las Vegas. His name is John Lear, and he is my guest today. Mr. Lear, thanks for being here.
Okay, George.
To begin with, you're a pilot, an airline pilot, captain. You have held 17 different world speed records at one time or another. You're a member of the famous Lear family that all Nevadans are pretty much familiar with, a former state Senate candidate. You don't sound like the kind of guy who would get hooked up in something that a lot of people would say is a bunch of nonsense.
No, it's just by coincidence that I got really interested. This about 2 years ago. My father saw a UFO and my brother did, and they were very interested, but there was really no proof, as far as I was concerned, to really look into it until about 2 years ago.
Your father and brother saw them. Can you give details?
My brother saw one. He was flying a P-38 from Phoenix to Los Angeles at night. It just appeared in front of him. He made two turns, 90-degree turns. It stayed in front of him and then disappeared. And my father was flying at night, I believe, over the Arizona desert and saw one too.
So you got an interest because of the other members of your family. How did you start out?
I had an interest, but there was really nothing I could put my finger on. And like I say, 2 years ago, a friend of mine came through town. We had flown in Southeast Asia together, and he was retiring from the Air Force. He came over, and we started talking about where he had been for the last 15 years. And he mentioned that he had been stationed at Bentwaters. And I said, oh, Bentwaters, that's where the flying saucer supposedly was in 1980. He said, no, John, not supposedly, it was. He said, I don't care if you believe me or not. It landed. I didn't see it because we were confined to quarters, but I know people who did, and I'll give you the names, and if you ever see them, tell them you know me, and they'll tell you the whole story. Since then, I ran into one of the security police who was within 10 feet of the saucer and actually saw the three aliens get out and go up to General Gordon Williams, who was the wing commander at that time.
Now, there was quite a bit of documentation regarding this Bentwater incident. Why don't you go into that a little bit?
There's the Colonel Halt memo that came out under the Freedom of Information Act, and it told about the mysterious lights and beaming down and everything that happened in the forest except the actual alien landings. That wasn't in the memo. And there was also the tape, Colonel Halt tape, forest tape, that he made over a period of 8 hours. And there's a 20-minute segment that we've been able to get a hold of that you can hear him running through the forest and being worried, saying the thing's after us.
Now, why do you suppose that hasn't come out? I mean, this particular incident, why hasn't come out if so many people, and you've told me about this before, have seen it or seen these aliens? Why haven't some of them come forward?
A lot of them have come forward, but they're just not getting any press. It's something that people just don't want to deal with, the press doesn't want to deal with, and people aren't going to listen to something unless Dan Rather or any of your big press people are going to tell them about it. And they're just too spooked. The Air Force has made an art form of ridiculing people who have talked about this thing. They've done an excellent job of covering it up for the last 40 years. George, basically what we're dealing with here is, I'll give you the bottom line.
Okay.
I'm not trying to sell it.
I want to hear your thesis.
I'm
your
not trying to
central
sell a
point.
book. I'm not trying to promote a lecture. This is based on what I've come across after intense research in the last year. And I have found out that the government has retrieved between 10 and 15 actual flying saucers, 3 of which have been in perfect condition, 1 of which they tried to fly. They have between 30 and 50 alien bodies in cryogenic storage. We even have the name of the person whose job it is to show these bodies to the heads of state and the people who are authorized to see them. They represent at least 5 different civilizations.
I can't imagine a Dan Rather or a Tom Brokaw, if that were to come to their attention, a story of that magnitude, that they wouldn't do something with it.
Well, I can't answer that question. I don't know why they don't do it. There certainly is enough evidence based on what I've looked at. For instance, the Linda Moulton Howe documentary in Denver for the CBS affiliate there called A Strange Harvest. Since 1975 to 1980, when she made the documentary, there's at least 9,000 cattle mutilations. Now, the government said that the mutilations were normal, your desert.
So let me just get myself back on. Yeah, so you've just heard, all right, John Lear talking about cattle stroke animal mutilations mentioned. And this is an extremely disturbing phenomena, which it is alleged is connected to UFOs, and it concerns animals of various kinds, including cattle. And what's happened is that these animals have been found, obviously dead. They've had bodily organs removed to an extremely high level of precision, and it usually involves no traces of blood. And it's a highly strange and disturbing phenomenon, to say the very least. And despite what the mainstream would tell you, it is still ongoing till this day. It hasn't let up in any way, shape, or form. And these poor animals are being seemingly systematically targeted and having their bodily organs removed. And no one seems to know who's doing it or why they're doing it or anything. It's just really weird and really strange phenomena. There's been allegations that it was satanic cults, but usually with satanic cults you would find blood, and a lot of blood, but there's no blood whatsoever. So it's been highly, like I say, it's been highly linked to the UFO phenomena. And one of the main UFO researchers to be connected to this phenomena is a lady by the name of Linda Moulton Howe. Absolutely superb UFO researcher, another investigative journalist, and she's one of the top people in the field. She has an excellent YouTube channel called Earth Files, which broadcasts every Wednesday and talks about issues to do with high strangeness in UFOs. She's written a number of best-selling books, including A Strange Harvest, and produced a number of documentaries, including regarding the UFO phenomena, and a number of these have focused on cattle stroke animal mutilations. So let's carry on now with with what we were just watching, so the documentary. So let's carry on
Predator
with that.
did these, but they weren't. The mutilations,
I think we have a picture of these somewhere. Maybe we can see that as you're talking.
Well,
that's the next picture. There we are.
This is the mutilation. New Mexico State Police did the research on, or the investigation on it, and they cut out certain parts with a, and the cut was made with a laser beam far sharper than anything we have. As a matter of fact, they were able to determine that they cut between the cells and didn't cut the cells themselves. We presently don't have this kind of technology.
Well, if we don't know that we have this kind of technology, or you and I don't know that we don't, but that doesn't prove necessarily that it's ET.
No, except that there's usually a visual sighting of a flying saucer or a light, a strange light, at each one of these sightings.
Okay, you mentioned the saucers and the bodies. Now, what kind of proof do you have that is true? How do you know that?
Well, let me take a look. Let me read to you first what the Air Force says about the bodies. First of all, I'm going to read from the Introductory Space Science, Volume 2, Department of Physics, United States Air Force. This is Chapter 13, Unidentified Flying Objects. Now, this is what the Air Force has the students at the Air Force Academy read. And it says, the most commonly described alien is about 3.5 feet tall, has a round head, arms reaching to or below his knees, and is wearing a silvery spacesuit or coveralls. Other aliens appear to be essentially the same as Earthmen, while still others have particularly wide wrap-around eyes and mouths with very thin lips. And there is a rare group reported to be about 4 feet tall, weight of around 35 pounds, and covered with thick hair for clothing. Members of this last group are described as being extremely strong. Now, I'm not making this up. This is an Air Force. You can pick out an Air Force physics book and read this stuff. And at the end of the chapter, they go on to say, this leads us to believe in the unpleasant possibility of alien visitors to our planet, or at least of alien-controlled UFOs. Now, the picture that we have of the big head that the Air Force describes, this picture was drawn by an Army surgeon. These are one of the bodies that was recovered in the famous Roswell incident of 1947.
Tell us about that.
It was the first flying saucer that crashed and was recovered by the Army.
Right, okay, so we've just, so we've just heard John Lear mention about the Roswell incident and how a number of books, and there's been a number of books written on this subject. Probably the most well-known and best book, in my opinion, on the Roswell incident is a book called The Day After Roswell by Philip Corso. It's a very good book, and it talks about everything that happened after the crash happened, and I thoroughly recommend you reading it because it gives a fascinating insight into what actually happened that day. So let's go back to...
There has been several books about it. They recovered 4 beings, and one of the surgeons that was responsible for the autopsy drew that picture and came up with some of these interesting things in the autopsy. I'll just read a couple. 3.5 to 4.5 feet tall, 2 round eyes without pupils, no earlobes, nose is vague, neck described as being thin, arms is described long and thin, reaching down to the knee section. You can see that there's a webbed portion in the hands, no teeth, no apparent reproductive organs, brain capacity unknown, colorless liquid prevalent in the body without red cells, no lymphocytes. And there's more in that particular report.
This is an autopsy report. Now, you said the government goes to great lengths, the Air Force in particular, to discredit this kind of stuff. Where did this come from? How did you get this?
That came in a private, that came from the private collection of Leonard Stringfield, who was one of the premier researchers. He worked for the Air Force in the early 50s in a secret project reporting UFOs. Then as a civilian, he continued his private research, and this is out of his collection.
Why does
So in the next section, I'm going to play you in just a few minutes. You're going to hear John Lear talking about why he believes the US government has not made a public statement about UFOs. Now, I have to say at this point, I 100% agree with everything he said. And I definitely think the reasons he gives are one of the biggest reasons as to why no official public statement has been made. I don't think it's the only reason, but I definitely think it's one of the biggest ones. Now, let's have a look at this and we'll come back in a second because it's important that you hear this because I do agree with him.
The government want to hide this. Why doesn't the Air Force just come forward? Why doesn't, why don't they level with us if this is all true?
Well, there's not really much they could say based on what I've been able to find out. George, they're really, what could they say about it? They've been researching it for many, many years, and based on my information, let's say that the president decided to make an announcement. If he made it today, this is what I think that he would say. My fellow Americans, I come to you before you tonight with an announcement of great importance. Despite all our denials, flying saucers do in fact exist. Where they come from, we do not know. Who is in them, we do not know. Where they are from, we do not know, nor do we know how they got here or what they want. We are unable to duplicate any of the metals found on the several craft we have recovered, nor are we able to figure out how they are propelled. We have hidden these facts from you over the past 40 years in hopes that we could give you more answers. Unfortunately, we are no closer to answers today than we were 40 years ago. God bless you all.
In other words,
so the fact is that it's now 38 years ago that this TV interview was aired. And if we are to believe everything that we've been told, nothing has changed. They still don't know what these entities are that are visiting us. We still don't know what they want. We still don't know where they're from. Every possible question that people are going to ask about them, allegedly we have no idea. Now, there is another school of thought which believes that they do know the answers to all these questions, but they're not prepared to tell us. That is a massive, massive rabbit hole. And I'm not going to talk about that here and now. I will talk about it in a future show, but I'm not going to do it today. So let's move forward again because he's going to say a few more things that are extremely interesting.
I find it highly unlikely that the president would ever make a statement, anything like that.
No, it's just, it's too big. The problem is not only just the fact that there are five and as many as 10 different civilizations visiting us. Apparently, and this is from the research that I've done, at least 90% of them are hostile. And when I say hostile, if not hostile, they have a completely different set of morals than we do.
Okay, I'll tell you what, we're going to come back to the president and aliens because there have been some statements made by...
So now, John Lear's comment, he just made a comment that I found really interesting. He said that about 90% of the civilizations visiting us are hostile. Now, I believe this to be inaccurate from my own research. I have heard that some are hostile, some are neutral, and some are friendly. And this is something I know that Lyndon Moulton Howe believes as well. But it does make perfect sense to me that some have a completely different set of morals, just because of the fact that in all likelihood, they would be hundreds, thousands, if not millions of years more advanced than us. And that their civilizations would have developed under a different set of cultural influences than ours. Just like if we were to go and find in a remote part of even on the same planet, on planet Earth, we were to go and find a group of humans living who'd had no contact with the outside world, they would likely have different ideas and different cultural influences than what we've had. So it doesn't surprise me that that would not surprise me if that is actually the case. So let's move on. So President Reagan made a speech at the UN on the 21st September 1987. Now, I'm just going to play the video and I'm going to talk to you about it in a minute. So let's get that up and play that.
The antagonisms of the moment. We often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war?
So I think this speech was extremely strange and posed numerous questions, which are as relevant today as they were when they made that speech, when he made that speech all those years ago. But that is another topic for another day, because that in itself is a humongous rabbit hole. Another humongous rabbit hole. And this field, I'm telling you, it's two things. It's huge. There's loads of rabbit holes, and it is extremely frustrating. I've been looking into this stuff since my early childhood, and it's always been the same. You get so far, and then you come up against a massive brick wall. And it is frustrating. And on numerous occasions, I've just walked away from it because I can't get any further with it. But yeah, no, if you're going to go into this, you've got to be prepared for loads of roadblocks and madness, because it's full of it. All I would say about it is this: is he trying to tell us something? Seriously, was he trying to tell us something? So let's go back to no, hold on. Yeah, let's look at this. So I've got three things to say about this. One, the pressure on people, institutions to keep this secret is huge. He's right about that. So let's go back though and watch the interview again, because they talk about this, but I want to let him have his say first, and then we'll come back and talk about this again in a second.
Including President Reagan. We'll be right back. Welcome back. UFOs, are they real? We're talking with John Lear on the subject. Mr. Lear mentioned a couple of minutes ago about what the president might say about UFOs. Do you believe that various presidents have been informed about what you believe to be the truth on UFOs?
Each president has been informed up to and including President Reagan. I'm not sure to the extent they are informed. Privately, I don't believe they are giving the full briefing. The people that control this information is a organization that we know of as MJ-12, and their top group of military and scientists And I do know that when the president becomes president, it takes at least 3 or 4 months before he actually gets the clearance to know everything there is. Now, that doesn't mean they tell him, but it does take 3 or 4 months to get. Now, talking to the president, let's talk about what the president has actually said. Has he mentioned anything about aliens?
President Reagan?
President Reagan, on December 4th, 1985, this is a copy of the speech from the White House, just before he went over to Iceland. He says, I couldn't but, one point in our discussions privately with Secretary General Gorbachev, when you stop to think that we're all God's children, wherever we may live in this world, I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet outside in the universe. We'd forget all our local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together.
He couldn't be just making a supposition for purpose of making a point? You're saying he's trying to tell us something?
Well, here, 1 week ago at the 42nd General Assembly in front of the UN, September 21st, he says, in our obsession with the antagonism of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside, universal threat to make us recognize this common bond. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet I ask you, is not an alien force not already among us? Now, this is right out of a White House speech. I'm not making this up.
What did he mean by this alien force? I mean, does it say? Does he go on to say something?
Yeah, he says, what could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our people than war and the threat of war?
I see.
But the point is, why would he even bring up aliens? I mean, it's pretty far out for the President of the United States to be mentioned threats from outer space.
Okay, what about President Carter?
President Carter, we have the quote from Carter when he was during his election campaign. If I become president, I'll make every piece of information this country has about UFO sightings available to the public and the scientists. I am convinced that UFOs exist because I have seen one.
Jimmy Carter says he saw one.
That's Jimmy Carter. He saw one in 1973.
But he didn't tell us, did he?
He doesn't. The pressure is enormous on these people to cover this stuff up.
How can that be? Are they afraid of a panic? That people would panic?
There's the panic problem, and there's also the problem that, in fact, in Cro-Magnon man, there may have been some tinkering to make us what we are today. And that's been borne out by several researchers. We couldn't have developed exactly the missing link. Something had to happen to get us going. Between 4000 and 8000 BC, we had just been going along, and for hundreds of thousand years not doing anything. All of a sudden, bang, we started making pottery, invented the wheel, invented fire, and everything took off. What was the key that did that? I don't know, but it causes one to think.
You mentioned a couple of minutes ago before the break that you think 90% of these visitors are hot.
Right, okie doke. So here we go. Let me just do this. Right, so now there's three things I want to say about what he said. The first one is that the pressure on people, stroke institutions, to keep this secret a secret is huge. And he's right about that. And in my opinion, he was right in 1987, and it's still true today. Just look at the steps that governments all around the world have taken to ensure the secret is kept secret. Now, what I find interesting about it is that there seems to be a uniform and united approach to this with all the world's governments. Now, this is extremely weird because normally they couldn't agree on the price of eggs, let alone something as fundamental and important as this. Now, also bear in mind the steps that they have taken. It seems that it seems have included forcing people to sign non-disclosure agreements. There have been threats, intimidation, careers and lives have been ruined, a refusal to cooperate with the United States Congress hearings in America, for example, which have included pushbacks and underhand negative tactics to ensure that their secrets remain secret. Secondly, tinkering to make us what we are today. Now, basically, I think what he's referring to here is the fact that the great unsolved mystery about humans' great evolutionary step forward. Now, this is one massive mystery, and it is because human beings had lived just like all the other human beings had lived. We shared planet Earth with for millions of years with no discernible development, and then suddenly something happened, something changed, and human beings suddenly took a massive evolutionary step forward. And to this day, no one seems to know how or why. Well, not that I've heard of anyway. And it wasn't just a slow progression, it just suddenly happened overnight, just like that. Now, it is believed that this change happened about 60,000 years ago. The only thing I would challenge on John Lear about is the fact he claims that this happened sometime between 4,000 and 6,000, 8,000 BC. However, it is true to say that human beings, as we would recognize them, seem to have existed on this planet for something like 200,000 years. But it is believed that human-like creatures who are our ancestors may have been on this planet for millions of years. Thirdly, the panic thing. Now, to be honest, I'm not completely sure it would cause that much panic in this day and age. It may have done in the mid to late 80s, but I don't think it would now. And I think there's various reasons for that. And I think a lot of it is because we've been conditioned and sort of not brainwashed, but we've been psychologically prepared for the to be told that UFOs are real and contact with aliens. I think that has been going on through the use of disclosure, like soft disclosure, that you wouldn't necessarily recognize through like movies and how would I describe it? What's the best way to describe it? Just through, cultural stuff that's happened and, just through slowly releasing stuff in a way that's not recognizable. Now, if the powers that be tried to claim that we were going to be attacked by a new non-human intelligence, now I'm pretty sure that would cause some panic in some quarters. But I also think it would bring out some bravado, which some people, with something along the lines of, "Oh, really? Come on, let them try that here, and they will see what happens." I think there'd be a group of people who had that attitude, and they'd be saying, "Well, come on, then bring it on." Certainly in the UK, I could see that happening, just because of the way that people are in the UK. And I'm pretty sure that would happen. That would be the attitude in a lot of countries around the world. However, if a simple statement was made saying that non-human intelligence was real, it would not cause a major breakdown amongst the planet's population or on our global infrastructure. That being said, I do not believe such a statement would be made at the moment, because I honestly believe the world's power brokers only know slightly more about this subject than we, the general populace, do. and it would make them look even more incompetent than what most people already believe them to be. And it would only serve to undermine public confidence in the world's governments even further. I think there are enough references in the world's various religious texts for the world's religions to be able to spin the revelation of non-human intelligences being nothing out of the ordinary. And to be perfectly honest, I think most people would have an indifferent attitude to the news. In fact, the US government has already admitted that there are objects flying around in the skies and they have no idea what they are, where they come from, or what they want. And this admission did not cause widespread panic or civil unrest. So let's go back to the interview and see what happens next.
Well,
Doesn't fit with what we think of as ET, you know?
If you read several of these books that are on the newsstands, one is called Intruders, one is called Communion. They apparently come down, and when I say apparently, this is taken from 300 hypnosis cases. A friend of mine has done 140 of them. And the people are abducted, they're taken up into a saucer, usually lasts about an hour. They do all kinds of experiments, they give them shots, they poke them, they cut them, they do all kinds of things, then wipe out their memory and send them back. Only after several months of some psychological problems do they end up going to a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist, on trying to find out what the problem is, in the use of hypnosis, finds out that this person has been abducted.
What's the reason for that? What are they trying to learn?
There's three things that they're trying to do with these abductions. The first thing is they're trying to monitor us. It started in the early 40s, and they'd put a little unit, very small BB-type object, way up in the backside of the brain, and they'd leave it there for about 18 years. They'd pick them up and put it in about 4 years old. About 12 years old, they would pick them up and monitor it. Then about 18, they'd take it out. The second thing they did is they put a post-hypnotic suggestion. According to many of the people that have been hypnotized, and we found out what they've told them, apparently within the next 2 to 5 years, there is going to be a big event. Something enormous is going to happen. And these people who have been abducted, and there's probably over 100,000 of them, have been given some place to go and something to do.
Right. Okay. So now, what we're going to talk about now is this claim that John Lear made about the abduction phenomena. Now, these claims are difficult to prove. And he claims that non-human intelligences are monitoring humans, carrying out medical experiments, and inserting or removing implants and genetically modifying us. And this fits in with what I was discussing earlier about the evolutionary step forward that the human race took probably about 60,000 years ago. Now, I have to say that many years ago, I was extremely skeptical about the abduction phenomena because I didn't hear reports or, photographs or video footage of people being beamed up into UFOs and then being beamed back again to where they'd been taken from. However, I have to say that I've changed my mind about this aspect of the phenomena due to the research I've done on this subject. So let's go back and see what he says next.
Best hypnotic techniques, we cannot find out what it is.
So how do we know that that's true?
Because they said they're going to do something. They know that they're going to do something, but under the hypnosis, they can't find out exactly what it is. And the third thing that they do is genetic experiments. They've been crossbreeding. There's a very good book out now called Intruders, written by Bud Hopkins. And it's about a crossbreeding experiment with a girl in Indianapolis. And they actually, the big head, what we call the big head in research, the little 3.5 foot tall with a big head. They crossbreed that with this girl in Indianapolis, and there were 7 children. And just last fall, before the book was published, they brought the oldest and the youngest to show to her, and they let her name all 7. Now, this book has been thoroughly researched by Bud Hopkins, and although it sounds strange, believe me when I tell you, you may not find out in a month, a year, 5 years, or 10 years, but you'll look back at what I'm telling you now, and you'll say to yourself, my gosh, the son of a gun was right.
Well, where's this girl now? She's just living on a farm?
She lives in Indianapolis. She lives in town, or just outside of town. She just got married. Bud went to her wedding. We all know who she is. She gets along, just fine. It doesn't mean, just because she was adopted and gave him children doesn't mean it was the end of the world. It was just a part of her life.
Why don't we see a lot of photographic evidence, as many cameras and video gear? Why don't we see a lot of that?
There are a lot of it.
Before you go on, I know the pictures that we showed in the beginning of this program, you say they're baloney, they're phonies.
That's right. The pictures you showed at the beginning were called the Myers incident. It's called the visitors from Pleiades. And any ufologist worth his salt knows, and who has researched that case, knows that he cannot back it up with the negatives and the essential information to prove that something like that happened. So we look at that as suspect.
So in other words, you run into your share of phonies as well in your research?
Absolutely. There's not that many, but there are a few out there. There's so many people that have real stories to tell that we're just so busy with those. For instance, let's take the November 17th Japan Airlines incident.
I'll tell you what, we're going to take another break, and we'll do that when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. We have a few minutes left with John Lear. We're talking about UFOs. You're about to tell me about the Japanese airline incident. It's probably something that's still in the memory of our viewers.
Yeah, the Japanese airline incident was a cargo 747 that had taken off from Iceland flying to Anchorage. And as he passed over the United States border and the northern part of Anchorage, he was intercepted by a UFO that was twice the size of an aircraft carrier. And he was followed by 40 minutes. He made a complete 360-degree right turn. He made a descent of 5,000 feet, and the thing stayed with him. Regardless of what you hear, the FAA did have him on radar, and so did the Air Force. If you have a picture there, this is a 26-page document made by Bruce Maccabee, who's a physicist employed by the Naval Surface Weapons Laboratory and one of the most respected figures in ufology.
I don't think we have that picture, so go ahead.
Okay, I'm just going to hold it up here, and you can see the size of the 747 to the UFO. Now, the UFO was not brightly lit like that. It's just made like that for reference. It was dark, but this is what he saw beside him.
Well, whose rendition is this?
This is the captain's. This is from the captain's rendition when he was debriefed by the FAA. Now, certain UFO debunkers have said what he saw was the planet Jupiter. Well, this is an insult to all transport category captains around the world. I mean, the guy knows the difference between something that's twice as big as an aircraft carrier and the planet Jupiter.
I've also heard that it's the reflection of his own plane.
But the radar,
Yeah,
that was an
something like
attempt to describe it. You can't imagine what pressure these people are under to cover this stuff up. It's tremendous pressure. It really is.
Okay. You were going to tell me that the church, did you want to go further into the JAL incident?
No, I just want to say that's a 26-page report. It had the captain and the ATC conversation. It had the radar plots, and it had the Air Force plots and the FAA radar plots. There was no question about it.
You want to tell
the thing
me
followed him.
The church, what do they think about UFOs?
Well, here's a copy from the London Evening News, July 21st, 1987. And it says, "Prepare to meet thine aliens." Vatican theologians have acknowledged that there could be life on other planets. Now they plan to train missionaries capable of working in space and meeting aliens. Jesuit scientists at the Vatican Observatory in Frascati near Rome have reported moving lights and other identified phenomena in the sky. starting in September, the Vatican University will have a special UFO section.
You've said before you thought a lot of their intentions were hostile, and you've mentioned before that a lot of the sightings are around military bases. Why don't we see them here, Las Vegas? We got a lot of military bases here.
Well, in fact, there have been a lot of reports of UFOs in and around Las Vegas, not specifically over the Air Force bases. We have the test site, and of course we don't know what's going on there, and we have Nellis Air Force Base, but there have not really been a lot of sightings over there. The main Air Force sightings were in 1975, and the UFOs descended on every Strategic Air Command base guarding the perimeter of the northern United States. And they hovered over the nuclear weapons storage area, and they stayed there with impunity for up to 2 and 3 hours over a period of 3 days.
And nobody heard about it?
Well, there was a few reports, but you really don't. I have a report 150 pages long of the F-106s that were sent out to chase them, and the helicopters, and notifying the Canadian authorities, and the security patrolmen that were sent down to actually see what was going on, and they'd come up on these things, and they'd say, "I'm not going any further."
You think maybe it's a top secret area? If the Air Force actually does have them, maybe they got him here?
I'm certain they do, up at the test.
So, as we have seen on many occasions, UFOs seem highly interested in the world's military bases, and it has been reported that they seem to be able to fly with impunity over the world's military bases, and there appears to be nothing which can be done to stop these craft from doing so. In fact, at one point, the Russians, after having 3 pilots killed after encounters with UFOs, ordered its pilots not to engage UFOs because they told their military personnel they have incredible capabilities for retaliation. Now, I have to say, I find this aspect of the phenomena extremely disturbing and extremely worrying. Just the fact that they're able to come in and do what they've been doing, and there seems to be nothing we can do about it, and powerless to do anything about it, I find extremely concerning. Now, in addition to this, there have been reports of UFOs disarming and shutting down nuclear weapons, and also powering them up, and even managing to enter them into their launch sequence by entering the highly secret and sensitive launch codes and causing huge panic in the military personnel working in the locations where these weapons are located. I just find that extremely concerning. And now I know that people have said that they're not hostile, they've shown no signs of aggression, but I'm extremely concerned. Why are they so interested in our military bases? Is it because they're concerned about the fact that we're messing around with nuclear weapons, which would have the ability to destroy our planet? Or is it because they want to know what our military capabilities are? I really don't know. I really don't know. All I do know is that I'm finding it concerning. So, John Lear just now also made a claim about the US government having craft similar to those used by the non-human intelligences, and these had been worked upon by his close friend Bob Lazar. Does fit in with the claims made by Bob Lazar about the work that he did at Area 51 S4, where he claims that he worked on the special project which was trying to back engineer alien non-human intelligence craft, specifically the propulsion system it used. So let's go back and listen to what John Lear was saying.
There's a report that of the 3 that they got in perfectly good condition, at least 1 is up at the test site and has flown, and 1 was being flown as of 1981.
By us?
By us, yeah.
We mentioned at the top of the show that perhaps a breakthrough might be coming, that some of these people from MJ-12 or from the Project Blue Book who are in on the government's research and who saw some of the stuff might be ready to talk. We got about a minute left. Why don't you tell me about that?
It's our information.
So you just heard, John Lear talking about Majestic 12. Now, Majestic 12 was allegedly a committee made up of US scientists, military leaders, and government officials that was set up by an executive order by President Harry Truman to facilitate the recovery and investigation of new non-human intelligence craft. Now, the reason I keep saying non-human intelligence rather than extraterrestrial is because there's a lot of debate about where these craft are actually coming from, and a couple of the theories are that they're extraterrestrial, i.e. they come from other planets, or are they interdimensional travelers, visitors, or are they time travelers, visitors from our future? So, but what the answer to that is, I have no idea. Now, in conclusion, I have to say that John Lear is an extremely complex and interesting character within the UFO world. And then it is my belief that he took great pleasure in teasing people and seeing what or how much he could get people to believe of the stuff he was saying. As a lot of his claims down the years have been on the extreme edge of the wild, and to be honest, would most likely struggle to get into a science fiction novel or film. I do intend to do a show in the future about John Lear and some of his theories and other theories and claims. Now, at the time that this show was first aired, I'm sure that a lot of people watching the interview would have thought that some of the claims that John Lear made were beyond outlandish and extreme. But to be fair, circa 38 years later, a lot of what he said has been vindicated. But he was a massive wind-up merchant, and he seemed to love seeing how far he could push things with people. What I found interesting about this was looking at George Knapp's face at different points in this interview. You can see that he's finding what John Lear is saying as being unbelievable and outrageous. And at some points, he looks like he's regretting having him on the show. Now, about 2/3 of the way through the show, John Lear says something along the lines, and we're going to look at the clip in a second. At some point in the future, it may not be today, tomorrow, a year or 2 years in the future, but you will look back at this interview and say to yourself, my God, that son of a gun was right. So with that, let's have a look at that and see what he actually said.
You may not find out in a month, a year, 5 years, or 10 years, but you'll look back at what I'm telling you now, and you'll say to yourself, my gosh, the son of a gun was right.
So there we are. Well, listen, I hope you enjoyed the show. Please put your thoughts and comments about what John Lear said in the comments section. And if you did enjoy it, please make sure you hit that like button, thumbs up button, the like button, thumbs up button on the video, and please share it with someone who you think might enjoy it as well. I'm trying to grow the channel, get more people following it and interested in it. I'd like at some point to be able to get other people on and chat with them about their experiences maybe, or their thoughts about what's going on. You don't have to talk about your own experiences, just even coming on and talking about what you think about these different phenomena and stuff that I'm going to be covering would be great. And maybe do some live streams as well, so that I can interact with people who have an interest in this subject. Would be great. So yeah, that's it for the time being. I think the next video I'm going to upload is something about Area 51, and again, that's like from back in the 80s. It's fascinating, and it was at a time when the American government didn't even acknowledge the place existed. So that would be a massive interest to look at that. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Please take care of yourselves, and remember, share some love and kindness around the world. Stay curious and make sure you keep your eyes on the skies. Take care, everyone. Thanks ever so much for watching, and I'll be back soon. Take care. Bye for now.
Choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
There's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
Listen, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. With the surface appears to be very, very fine-grained as you get close to it. I'm at the foot of the ladder. I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap